Hey guys. When I put out my first video 2.5 years ago or so, I was petrified, but also realistic about what would almost certainly happen. I knew I was going to be doxxed, I knew I'd lose friends and family, and I knew that I would be a subject of derision in my smug leftist community. Of course, all of that has happened, but what I did not expect was to have a new community and to have waves of far more support than condemnation. And what I especially did not expect was from people from my past, sometimes honestly long forgotten, popping up to tell me that they agree with me and wish they could say the same things publicly. I get that quite commonly, that what I'm saying is generally self evident, and they wish they could be honest in their workplace, in their family life, in their personal relationships. That's what I want to talk about today. I don't want to diminish the damage that can be done. I understand what it's like to live in fear of income loss or social alienation, but irrespective of the consequences, this is something that we have to do now. Previous generations had to fight in wars, they had real risks of death. I fear that we've lost perspective in the West. Losing your job, your friends and family, that's no small thing. I understand that. But it pales in comparison to the sacrifice of previous generations. This week, America was captivated and divided by the hiring of this racist New York Times broad, Sarah Jong. She was trending nationally on Twitter for the entire day, and people were absolutely appalled by her anti-white, anti-male tweets. Most of the public was focused on the outrage, but I actually began to perceive this as a serious white pill. I was encouraged that so many people were pointing out that racism against whites is actually a thing. First, even though she had plenty of support, this was the most public case in recent memory of anti-white racism being so brazenly accepted and excused by the left. The New York Times' ridiculous claim here was that these freestanding tweets, which were not responses to anyone, were actually reactions to racism against this Harvard-educated, privileged Asian chick. Now, this pissed people off, but what it really demonstrates is that the left has fully revealed their anti-white bias long before mustering the public support necessary for their agenda to be successful. They knew about her tweet history, they knew this would come to light in the general public, but I don't think they expected to draw such ire from the general public or to be strong-armed into issuing any kind of statement, albeit bullshit. Additionally, when a formerly esteemed publication such as the New York Times states its biases so clearly, the remaining mystique it retained is greatly diminished. Obviously, to us, we know they've never had any integrity. Walter Duranty lied his ass off about the Bolshevik slaughter of tens of millions of people, then won a fucking Pulitzer Prize. I talk about this in my videos on the Holodomor, which I've linked below. But in general, the New York Times, despite covering up an actual genocide to protect filthy communists, was formerly held in high regard. So what happened? They have cut a significant portion of their staff, they have consolidated their offices to reduce their rent burden, and they are begging for subscriptions at a deeply discounted price. Now, on their editorial board is a bona fide anti-white, anti-male feminist, and they're unapologetic. We've known all along that this is their stance, but they seem to think that it is time to be honest about it and are no longer interested in hiding it. They're failing because of their disconnect with average Americans who are white, middle class, and are apathetic about politics until they hear something like this. Now, what does this have to do with you being honest about your opinions in your personal and work life? The situation with the New York Times signifies a shift away from placating racist leftists and servicing elites that have no real understanding of middle America anymore. And it isn't just the New York Times. The leftist mainstream media has completely lost the plot and is less popular and less powerful than ever before. Competitors MSNBC and CNN both struggle to match Fox's dominance, falling to 3rd and 16th in primetime, respectively. CNN and MSNBC can't even compete with cartoons and cooking shows because their Trump hysteria has caused a complete disconnect with normal people, and instead of self-reflecting, they continue to blame these garbage Trump supporters. The left is also losing academia. College degrees are becoming increasingly worthless, and employers are beginning to see that if they hire folks without a college education, they can avoid the toll that their leftist indoctrination has taken and ultimately will have a cheaper and lower liability employee. Also, we're going to see the higher education bubble burst. College debt is at new highs, and the payoff is diminishing every day as employers remove requirements for a college education. After the first quarter of 2018, student loan debt reached an all-time high of 1.5 trillion according to the Fed. Linkey's CEO told Fox Business on Wednesday that more than 3/4 of college students have federal loans, while roughly 20% have trouble paying them back. Once this bubble bursts, and it will, academia is going to implode. Administrators are the bulk of the cost within the industry, and colleges are businesses. When this happens, we can reclaim the institutions and make academia what it once was, a place of education that provides a solid understanding of and reverence for the gifts that Western culture has bestowed on the world. Going to an Ivy League school used to mean something. Now Harvard turns out racist, anti-white feminists like Sarah Jeong, and Yale turns out deranged minorities with victim complexes like these lunatics.
Stay quiet! Job, treat a place of comfort and home. Then
No, I don't agree with that.
Then why the fuck did you accept the position? It is not about creating an intellectual space. It's about creating a home here.
Additionally, the left is losing Hollywood. Me Too has caused serious cannibalism. Outrage mobs are descending on the left in the same way that they preyed on celebrities like Roseanne. And the public is becoming ever more capable at identifying subversive propaganda in film and television. And you know how it is. Once you start to see these things in your life, you can't unsee them. The market is ripe for right-wingers to amass their own audiences of middle Americans. If the loss of power in the left isn't enough for you to start being honest in your own life, then the ground we've been gaining should give you a sense of security and let you know that even if you're not totally accepted right now, eventually you will be. Alternative media is more powerful than ever and is gaining ground at a breakneck speed. I'm a one-woman operation. I write, research, film, and edit everything on my channel by myself, so do almost all other YouTubers, and it is completely manageable to do alone. Styx puts out like 40 times the amount of content that I do. He works alone, and he has 264,000 subscribers. Stefan Molyneux is going to hit 1 million in about the next year or so. If you were the mainstream media and you were hemorrhaging money, investing fruitlessly in a failing business model with an average audience in their 60s, and had completely flatlined online, had failed to adapt despite all of your resources and collusion with the tech industry, wouldn't you be shaking in your boots seeing one man with a webcam outperform your entire presence online? This is why they shut down Alex Jones, which is discouraging, of course, because they can, but it's encouraging because they think they have to. Perhaps the biggest white pill of all is that despite the left's poo-pooing, the economy is growing. Unemployment is low, GDP is up 4.1%. This race baiting only sways the extremely rich and the extremely poor, the former because they have the luxury of such a consistent high quality of life that they won't be threatened if it's reduced for the rest of us, and the latter because the majority of welfare recipients are voluntarily government dependent anyway and won't see benefits from an improved economy. Your average American cares about that extra savings each month, their improved job prospects, and small benefits that make their lives a little bit easier. Everything else is just noise, and this makes me very confident that we'll take 2020 as well. That and the left will not move to the center, so their candidates will continue to be unrelatable and unelectable. You don't have to hide anymore. The left certainly doesn't. I can't tell you how many times I've been in conversations with colleagues or family members that say something markedly leftist or feminist. I've mentioned this a few times before, but I've had colleagues say to me, "What do stay-at-home moms do all day?" Before, I kept my mouth shut, but if I were asked this today by a colleague, I would say that they're training the next generation instead of doing menial work for a faceless bureaucracy. That would shut them up real quick. Similarly, I've heard friends and family say that they don't believe that there are Muslim grooming gangs, for example. If that happened now, I would whip out my phone and show them the piles of evidence. Most leftists will not be swayed by evidence, but some will, and some of the remaining will be pushed into a defensive and weaker position merely by being challenged. We need to operate with an equal, if not more extreme level of candor than leftists, and they aren't censoring themselves at all at work or in their personal relationships. All of us need to stop biting our tongues and taking the high road to keep the peace. The left refuses to do this, and so should we, even if it means that there will be conflict. Believing in free speech also means not self-censoring, and this is so important. Of course, there is a time and a place for this, and one must choose their battles carefully, but only as carefully as the left chooses their battles. So not carefully at all. If you've said something that is true and someone else finds it offensive, do not go into apology mode. Every time I read a groveling apology from someone that tweeted something offensive or made an off color joke, it just makes me realize that I would have so much more respect for them if they just stood their ground and told their critics to kick rocks. It may seem like a small thing to stand up for your beliefs in your own life, but you will inspire courage in others, and that's how we can make waves. There's also tremendous value in sharing the risk. The more each of us does this as individuals, the less powerful the left is when they call us racists or sexist or bigots. Those terms still make some people shrink, but for the most part, they've really lost their power from overuse. Each of us has a talent, a skill set, a valuable ability that can be utilized to further our position. When we stop caring what people think about us and start defending our very defensible positions in our relationships and at work, we gain ground. And if we all do it, we win. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are we better off keeping our political affiliations to ourselves and retaining some semblance of peace in our personal lives? Or is it time to tackle this? Thanks, folks, and I'll see you soon. Bye.